Hey guys, Jared here, and today we're going to be performing some benchmarks to compare the Nvidia 1060 against the model above it, the 1070, to see what the difference in performance is, and help you decide which of these cards you should get. First off, I'm going to be performing these tests on two different laptops. While they're quite similar, there are some differences to note, as these may affect the results slightly. Both laptops have 16GB of DDR4 RAM at 2400 MHz, with Windows 10 running on SSD storage with all updates applied, and the latest Nvidia drivers to date are also installed on both laptops. In terms of differences, the laptop with the 1060 has an Intel 7700HQ for its CPU, while the laptop with the 1070 has an Intel 6700HQ, so please note that a small percentage of the benchmark results may be due to this difference. However, if you've seen my recent video comparing these two CPUs against each other, the difference is fairly minimal. Unfortunately, I simply don't have two laptops with the exact same CPU for this test. This is as close as I was able to get, so it will have to do. During the tests, no overclocking has been performed. G-Sync is also disabled, as I don't want to limit the frames per second in any way. Alright, so hopefully you'll agree that the laptops are pretty similar, though it's definitely not a 100% apples to apples comparison. The key difference here is, of course, that one is running an Nvidia GeForce GTX 1060 while the other has a 1070. We can see straight away that the specs of the 1070 are of course higher. So how do they compare? Let's find out and jump into our benchmarks. We'll cover both real-world gaming benchmarks in terms of frames per second, as well as the results of some benchmarking tools. First we'll start with the gaming benchmarks, as these are most useful. I've tested Grand Theft Auto 5, The Witcher 3, and Shadow of Mordor on both laptops. In GTA 5, I tested with FXAA on, with MSAA set to 8, with a 1080p resolution and VSync off. We can see that the 1060 wasn't too far behind here, at 55 FPS to the 1070's 66 FPS. Both are pretty respectable results for such high settings, definitely playable on either. In The Witcher 3 I used the Ultra preset and disabled VSync and Nvidia Hairworks, and again ran at the full 1080p resolution. The difference between the two cards here gives a bit more of an edge to the 1070, which is 20 FPS ahead in this test. Again, both of these cards are more than capable of playing with these high settings with decent frame rates. In Shadow of Mordor with Ultra settings at 1080p, the results are very close, with only a 4 FPS difference between the two cards, which I found quite interesting. Perhaps this game simply isn't as reliant on the graphics cards as the others. Now onto the benchmarking tools. While a useful indicator, note that these results are less practical compared to the real-world gaming tests previously shown. In Heaven benchmark with the quality set to Ultra, tessellation on Extreme, and anti-aliasing on 8 at 1080p, the 1070 was quite a bit ahead of the 1060, though still a fair result from the 1060. It's a similar story in Valley benchmark. With the quality set to Ultra and anti-aliasing on 8 at 1080p, the 1070 came out ahead by a similar amount. The 3D Mark Time Spy and Firestrike benchmarks also tell the same story, with the 1070 getting a nice increase when compared to the 1060. Finally, let's check the temperatures of each card during the testing. We can see that the idle temperatures are pretty similar here, with the 1060 being slightly cooler. However, keep in mind that the cooling implementation of each laptop could also factor in here. Under load, however, the 1060 was running quite a bit cooler, which is to be expected as the 1070 is definitely more powerful. So as we expected, the 1070 was faster, but by how much? And is this worth it? On average, based on all of these tests, the 1070 performed approximately 22% better overall. So does this make it worth picking over the 1060? Well, that depends on a few factors. If the 1060 is able to give acceptable performance to you, however many FPS you define that to be, then save yourself some money and go for that. You can always drop the graphics settings down a bit to increase the frame rate further. I'd be looking into the 1070 if perhaps you wanted consistently higher FPS with higher settings, or if you're planning on pairing it with a display above 60Hz, so that you can actually take advantage of the higher FPS that it can provide. In the end, it will come down to how much you're willing to pay. However, I think the 1060 is able to provide a great experience in most games with decent settings, and should be fine unless you really want to go with the higher settings or FPS that the 1070 can provide for the higher price. I hope that this video has helped you see the real-world differences in performance between these two graphics cards. Be sure to leave a comment on the video and let me know which of these cards you'll be picking. And leave a like on the video if you found it useful. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for future tech videos like this one.